Yeah, we'll rock and roll. Get started here. Hey, it's Kendall with Lawnbot in the house, and I'm super excited for this episode of Lawnbot Live. Every Friday, we bring you the people that are making waves in the industry, whether it's lawn care, pest control, specifically, maybe it's home services. And today, I'm super pumped to get my friend Donnie Shelton on Lawnbot Live with Coalmarch, Triangle Pest Control. Donnie, welcome to the show. I've been wanting to get you on the show for a while now.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be able to hang out with you guys. And of course, Kendall, I've known you for quite some time, and so it's great that we could make it happen and have a little chat, so to speak. So there you go.
Yeah. And you're coming in hot off your first virtual, right? First virtual conference.
Yeah, virtual CO2. That's right. Yeah, we just finished up yesterday. And it was a great conference, right? I mean, obviously with COVID and kind of the new realities of working from home, CO2 in general is a very different event than any other event that you'll see in our industry. When I say our industry, I mean the pest and lawn industry. Most conferences, there's this kind of highly technical component, and then maybe like one or two business tracks, right? At CO2, we cut all that out. It's all business, right? And it's all about growing your business. And so we look at kind of the key components that it takes to really build a service company and the key components. And so we spent like this last virtual conference, and this is pretty typical for CO2. We'll spend a day on marketing, kind of the latest marketing strategies, what's working for some folks. We bring in outside speakers. We bring in speakers from outside the industry. We also bring in speakers who are just killing it. So we'll start with marketing one day, and then, the next day we'll do sales. And, I'm sure you know this, Kendall, but, you could be awesome at marketing, but if you're not good at attracting really good people, you just can't scale. And so we spend a day on people as well. And so this year it was no different. I say it was no different. The topics were no different. And we had just some knockout speakers. I don't know if you saw some of the speakers, but, we had Mike Romney, from Fox Pest. We had Ian Robinson from Massey. I mean, we had some big players there this year. And so I can talk more about it. I keep going. I mean,
Well, first, before we dive into the thick of it, tell the viewers watching, who you are and where you come from. I mean, obviously you own a marketing company in the pest that services the home service market, pest control.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people don't know about you, that, you've had a very unique journey to get where you are today. And so what do you do today? I mean, I know you do Triangle and Coalmarch. Just tell our viewers a little bit about what your day looks like right now.
Okay. So yeah, we'll start with today, and I'll back up a little bit, and I'll try to keep the details minor as best as I can. But so today, I just have a ridiculous, crazy life. I have 4 children. I love them all most of the time. I have a 17-year-old daughter. Her name's Caroline. And I also have a 14-year-old daughter whose name's Maren. I've got an 11-year-old boy named Blake. And yes, his name really is Blake Shelton. Quick aside, when my wife wanted to have a son named Blake, she goes, "Oh, I don't know. People will think we named him after Blake Shelton." I'm like, "Oh, he's a one-hit wonder. He'll be gone. He'll be gone by the time Blake comes." And yeah, you can see I really nailed that one. So anyway, I've got Blake Shelton, and then Owen, who is he just turned 9. So full house at home. Love it. It's a ton of fun having kids. I never imagined I would have 4 kids, but here we are, and I've got 4. So that's priority number 1. Second thing is I love flying. I flew in the military for 15 years, and I fly today. I don't do it. I mean, obviously I don't make a living at it like I did in the military, but but I do fly to visit clients and to go to conferences and those types of things. And so I spend a lot of time on that passion. And then you're right. I own Coalmarch, which is a digital marketing company. We are focused exclusively on home services. We're very big in the pest and lawn markets, but we have a few other home service markets that we do as well. And then I have Triangle Pest Control. And, Triangle I started back in 2006, really as a brand new company. And so that's where I spend the majority of that's where I spend all of my time. And I tell you, my little corner of the universe, I absolutely love what I do. And there's a lot of details, a lot of things within that, but that's where I spend the majority of my time. So.
Wow. That's a lot going on. And what I realized when I went to your first CO2, like in person, you are a very strict, right? You go to bed early, you wake up early. And I'm like the total. I'm like this kind of creative guy. I'm like, free sounds good. That's where all my creativity comes out.
Oh, if you only knew how much I get made fun of for that. Yes. So if you come to my conference, I am not going to be the guy at the bar at midnight. You're just not going to see me there, right? I'm a guy that I go to bed usually around 9 or 10. I'm up at 4. I enjoy getting up that early, mainly because I have about 2 hours of just kind of my own time, and I can get a workout in and kind of plan for the day. And it's, but yeah, I mean, it is, and at home, it's really no different. It's just, I don't know, I kind of started that in the military, and it just never went away, and now it's become a habit, and it works pretty well for me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So why pest? I mean, you come from like your journey into the military. Before we hopped on the call, it was a little bit, maybe you said you mentioned that your mom had to send you into the military.
More like she was ready for me to get out of the house. So yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So why pest? I mean, I think what's fascinating about the pest and lawn industries is it's a little bit overlooked, but I think it's one of the most, to your point from CO2 last year, it's one of the most insulated industries out there.
Yes.
A lot of our clients, mutual clients, grew during the pandemic. So I'm super fascinated. Why military, fighter pilot? Where did that?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So first things first, I will say, I don't think we're getting overlooked any longer. If you take a look at what's happening in the pest control industry, there's a lot of private equity coming in, and investment bankers are actually starting to look at our industry. And so what you're seeing is that, there's these rates and these multiples that folks are getting for, this, we call it a roll up, right? Where these larger private equity groups are coming in, they're buying these smaller companies. And what they have found and what they have seen is really what got me into this industry that I saw back in 2006. My background, I got my degree in computer science, and I will never forget this, right? If you ever want to get very, if you really want to impress your mother-in-law, you can do what I did, right? So I'm like I'm the top Java developer at Progress Energy. And my job is to run these massive web projects. And so that's what I was doing. I was writing code for that. And so I'm writing code for these web projects. And I'm like, I really want to start my own business. And so here I am, I'm flying the reserves. I'm flying, aircraft. And I've got this nice cush job. And I'm like, I apply to get my MBA from Duke University. And I don't know how I talked them into it, but they actually let me in. So I'm in their MBA program. They send me all the pre-coursework along with a $90,000 bill. And I'm like, well, maybe I can just do this on my own. And so I started doing research, and I'm like, eventually I kind of want to be my own boss. Yeah. And so I started researching different industries. And look, I'm not one that, I need the prestige. And I looked at the pest control industry, and I'm like, man, that's a really great industry. The margins are good. Only about 38% of the market is controlled by these large companies. All the rest of the market is controlled by local businesses. So that means there's a ton of space there that I can run in. And I literally showed up and said, I'm starting a pest control company. And so when I say, if you really want to impress your mother-in-law, let her know that her daughter's with you, and you're going from being a pilot and, kind of the top Java developer in a Fortune 500 company to starting a pest control company. And that went over like a fart in church. All right. It didn't go over very well. So I started my first company. That was, it wasn't my first company. It was my first foray into home services. And that's how Triangle got started. I found a company called Mike's Pest Control here in Fuquay Varina. I'm in the Raleigh area. And the guy was 82 years old. He had 23 accounts doing 12,000 annually in revenue, and they were all $25 monthly service accounts. And so I purchased it. So my very first pest control stop was actually as an owner. So I bought his company in a Wendy's dining room in Holly Springs. True story. We wrote it down on a piece of paper. Wow. I gave him $5,500, and we went to the bank and we notarized it. And that's how I got started. And I kept him with me for 2 years until I could get my license. And that's how I got Triangle started. So that's the story of how I got into pest control. But it really came down to, I saw really early on, this is a very, it's not recession proof, but let's just say recession resistant. And it's also a very good, recurring revenue model business. So.
Yeah. So that's why you got in. What's the vision for your pest control? Is it to flip it? Is it to hold for the long term? I mean, what's...
Yeah. No, I love, you know what? Yeah. I've gotten into this industry, and let me just tell you, and I will say this for pest and lawn, both of those industries are just golden. And I mean that, meaning that you will not find better people, better business owners, more honest people than you'll find in the home services market. I mean, I have just been so impressed with folks that are in the industry, and I've had a lot of help. And early on, I had been through, I'd got my degree in computer science, and I'd been through all this leadership training as an officer, and I was getting my butt kicked. And there's a lot of folks in the industry who really helped me out. And they never asked for anything for it. They just did it because they knew I was trying to, build a company. And so my vision is I don't want to get rid of my pest control. I want to keep it until I'm an old man and it's time for me to do something different. But the vision is to grow it as fast as I can, influence as many people as I possibly can as part of that. We certainly at Triangle, we look to build people, not necessarily a business. And, my view on it is if we build people, the business will come along with it. And, and Triangle really is our vehicle to do that. Every person that sits on my leadership team started off at the front line. Every single person. It's amazing, right? My CEO started out as a technician. Mm-hmm. And so it's been wonderful to kind of sit back and watch, folks grow up in the business. And I think it does an awful lot for our culture. And that really is my vision, right? It's like, hey, we are, we're now in multiple markets and the company's grown very well. And I want to kind of keep that train going. I think it's a lot of fun.
Let's dive into that. So you started in a Wendy's diner, closed the deal on the back of a napkin, maybe a Frosty too with it. Where are you guys at today? I guess truck count wise or full time?
Yeah. So we have
this show. They're really ambitious. They want to grow their business. So to hear inspiring stories like yours, where you started in a Wendy's, and I kind of have an idea about how big your business is, but tell our viewers.
Yeah. So right now we service the Raleigh market. Of course, that's where I'm at. We service Raleigh. We service Charlotte, North Carolina. We also service Colorado Springs, Denver, and Denver. Oh my gosh, Colorado Springs, Colorado, and Denver, Colorado. So we're in 4 markets right now. We have plans to expand into a few other markets. We have roughly about 60 some trucks. I don't, the employee count. I don't know that specifically. But our goal is to be at 10 million by the end of next year. Okay. And so we're just, we're kind of cooking along and that's not, there are other door-to-door companies out there who are going a lot faster than we are. We've done it all with digital. We've not done any door-to-door. Yeah. And that's been, that's because it's something that I knew, right? When I got into the industry, I knew software, I knew computer science, and I didn't know marketing that well, but I knew how to manipulate, technology. And so that's kind of how I got in.
So what's the time horizon on that from that Wendy's day where you bought your first company to now? Is that 10 years, 20 years?
It's right at 14. So it was 2006 is when I started. And so, this is our 14th year. And initially out the gate, my goal was to get to $1 million as quickly as possible. And so the first 2 years, I didn't take a paycheck. I had been fortunate in that I had saved my money throughout. By the time I started Triangle, I was already flying in the military. And so I'd been through pilot training, I'd been through college. And as part of that process, I just put money back. And so what I was doing was I was using my savings to pay us, and I was flying at night. And so it was nothing uncommon for me to show up at work at 6:30 in the morning, grab my can or whatever, or if it go out and do a termite job, I'd be under someone's house all day. I would go home, shower, drive down to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. And then that night from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m., I'd be refueling airplanes or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'd land and, get home at 12:30 at night or, 1 a.m, somewhere around in there, and do it all over again. And that's how I put food on the table.
Where did that work ethic come from? Did that come from the military? Did that come from seeing your parents?
Hey, man, I'm going to tell you right now, nothing drives innovation like desperation. And so when I started my company, I had, my first daughter, Caroline, was already born. And I'm not joking when I tell you this. The way I remember my daughter's birthday is that she was born the month that I started. My second daughter, she was born the month that I started my business. And I remember having one kid, my wife being very pregnant with our second daughter. And I'm like, if I'm going to start a business, like, it's either now or never, because it's not going to get easier, right? At some point, it's like, we're going to get to a point where I can't afford to take this risk. And so yeah, it was, that was the big driver, was that, I wanted to make sure, it's just this wanting to succeed, right? I've always been a hard worker. And I think most people, who run businesses, a lot of folks don't understand how much work it really takes to run a business. It looks nice. And I think a lot of business owners look really lazy, but the cold hard truth is that to build a company, you got to hustle. Right. That's just, no one wants to talk about that part, right? Everyone's like, oh, they did this cool thing and blah, blah, blah. Well, yeah, that's true. But at the end of the day,
and to your point, 14 years, they look at you now and they're seeing your chapter 20. They would have saw chapter 1 at the Wendy's.
Oh gosh. And all the mistakes that I made. My gosh, we could spend probably a year going through all of those, but
yeah. We could do a whole show on that. So that's awesome. I think that's super inspiring for people watching this, that going all in, betting on yourself, 2 kids on the way at one point. You're like, man, if there's any time to do it, it's now, and I'm going to go and I'm going to be all in. I think that's super inspiring for somebody who's like sitting with 2 or 3 trucks today, or maybe they're thinking about starting their business. I think that, thank you for being successful and being an example of somebody to look up to, right? Like, thank you for being successful, because we need more examples of that.
Well,
thank you. A lot of stuff out there that is, especially, to your point, you mentioned you have to hustle, you have to go and get it, you have to go knock on doors, you have to, here's Donnie, the Air Force pilot, under houses spraying chemicals, like actually doing the work. Now you have a company, $10 million in revenue. That's amazing. Like, you're an American.
Well, and here's the cold reality here. And this is the part that I don't think you can ever forget as a business owner. You could wake up tomorrow and it could be all gone. It's unlikely, right? But there are no guarantees in life whatsoever. And I always have that in the back of my mind that, listen, it's been a wild ride. It's been a ton of fun. But at the end of the day, there's other people out there wanting the same thing. And I've got to work harder, right? I am okay with being outfunded. I'm okay with being, someone having more talent with me, but I'm not okay with someone outworking me, because that's something I can control. That's a key thing.
I love that. I love the saying, you can't fail if you don't quit, right? Like, no matter what, I don't care if it takes me 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like, I will die before I give up on trying to hit that target. And just having that kind of just mentality is.
So let me tell you a quick story. It's funny that you say that, because you just jogged a memory of mine. Let's talk a little bit about, I flew in the military. Let me tell you a little parts that most people don't know. I graduated high school with a 1.75 GPA. It's awful. By the way, I'm not bragging about that at all. And so when I graduated, I could run. And so I had a couple of running scholarships. But, if I'd have went into college right out of high school, it would have been an absolute disaster. And so instead I went into the military. And, when I set this goal that I wanted to be a pilot, it was such a pie in the sky goal. And I'll never forget, I had a bunch of buddies say, Donnie, dude, that ship has sailed. Look at your background. Look at your schooling. There's no way that you're going to get in to Air Force Academy. And so I literally worked 7 days a week for 2 years. The only days I took off was Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I went to college full time. So I worked on base. I worked from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. Sometimes I'd go a bit later, but normally that was the typical hours. I had class from 8 until noon. So I was taking 12 hours, and I worked a part-time job on the weekends because I needed the extra money. I did that for 2 years, and I applied to the Air Force Academy. And the whole goal was, number one, is I had to redo high school basically at a community college. So I kind of erased that. And then I started taking more college classes, and I applied to the academy. And I thought for sure that I was going to get in because I was already in the military. Normally, if you can put a year in college, it erases. They don't look at your high school transcript. Well, they did. And then also, you have to have a congressional recommendation. So I'd worked with my senator, and I had it all lined up. Didn't get in. got told, not happening. You're not coming in. And it was a huge blow, man, because I had, in that moment in my life, I'll never forget, I think I was like 19. I had never, I guess 20 by this time. I had never worked so hard for something in my life, and I failed, like big time failed. And so I will never forget, I'm like, maybe this thing for flying is just not in the cards for me. And it took me a couple of weeks to get over it. Well, then I was like, well, okay, that door is shut. What can I do? And you can go in the military and fly in multiple ways. I wanted to go in the academy because I didn't have any money to go to college. Mm-hmm. Well, I ended up going, and I applied to ROTC. I didn't get into that. I went, got out, went to NC State, got my degree, and I applied to OTS. And lo and behold, 10 years on my birthday, I'll never forget this, I graduated pilot training. And only my mom and my wife knew that it had taken me 10 years to do something that most folks can do, right out of high school. Pilot training is only 2 years. And so I think probably that, just that experience of really sticking with it and never giving up, because it was considering where I started, and there's no one to blame there but me. I mean, I'm the one that put myself in that spot. I remember my mom telling me when I was in high school, she's like, Donnie, you make those grades, you got to live with them. But at the same time, it was a huge undertaking, and I'll never forget, what it felt like when my mom and my wife pinned my wings on. It was amazing.
Do you think that school was just the wrong place for you? Because obviously you're a very high achiever. Do you think school just wasn't able to handle you as being an?
I think I have a knucklehead personality, really, and I'm trying to overcome it. Right. So I'm the type, like, if I don't see a point in something, like, I completely lose interest. And when you're in high school, I know for me at least, I just didn't I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like, to me, it was kind of a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And once I got in the military and I set a goal, you look at my high school transcripts as opposed to my college transcripts, and you would think it's the different Donnie Shelton. And the only difference was I was very clear on what I wanted. And this was a means to an end, right? Versus in high school, it's like there's a means, but the end is very blurry. Right. And I think that even for an entrepreneur, take out school, take out everything. If you don't have a clear picture of what you're going for, it makes it very, very difficult to make the sacrifices necessary to get there. And I still believe that even today at Triangle and at Coalmarch, we have a very compelling vision. We have a very definitive endpoint, whether it be this year or 5 years or whatever. And so when the times get hard, and they always do, and when the challenges come up, and they always will, it's like, hey, this is worth it, or no, this is not really worth it, right? I mean, it makes it very, very clear, like, what you need to do. So
I love that. You got to have a clear target, right? Or else, where am I going, right? So let's dive into that. Where did Coalmarch come from? And obviously that's like, you got the pest control thing going. Did you start Coalmarch from scratch? Did you buy that company too?
Yeah. So I can talk through that a little bit. So, with Triangle, I always had the vision of kind of working myself out of a job. We talk about work ethic. I can also be pretty lazy. And what I mean by that is that I always want to be driving the business, right? And anytime I'm doing the work of the business, I'm not driving. And so as I was building Triangle, you had this vision that I was building this $50 million company. and it needed systems and checklists. And just like, I had my background in the military where, the military does some amazing things. I mean, it has, it operates on a global timeline, and there's, literally thousands of aircraft all over the globe, and all that stuff has to be coordinated. And you got pilots and aircraft and maintenance and training and all these different things. And so, you have to have a really good solid system. And so I had that mindset with growing Triangle. And anyway, but the marketing piece was the very last piece that I would let go because it was such an engine for our growth. And so I stayed personally involved with that. I did all of our marketing personally early on.
Yeah.
And so what was happening was like, I would, try to offload that to an agency, and we would be, we'd be like the shiny toy in the toy box for about 6 months. And then what I would see is I'd see the agency as a business was not ran very well. I mean, I'm sure you don't know this, but most marketing type agencies are ran by left brain people. They're very creative, right? That's what makes them strong. But that typically doesn't mean they're disciplined or they know how to run a business per se. Not always, and so what was happening is that I was switching firm after firm because it was like we would get about 6 months out of them, and then I'd have to start all over again. And then I talked to some of my buddies, and they had some of the same problems. And I thought, well, wait a minute. If I'm struggling with this and all my buddies are struggling with this, why don't I just find a company that's got a lot of talent, and then I can bring the business discipline to it and focus it on pest and lawn. And so that was the original idea. I had worked with Coalmarch in the past. They had a lot of talented people. And so I just pulled the owner aside and I'm like, hey, look, man, I think I can make this work for both of us where we both could be pretty successful. You continue to drive the team. I will buy the business. I will bring in, the checklist procedures, and we will scale this. And, at the time they had some really big clients. We had RCA Records. We had Duke University. We fired them all and said, we're going all in on pest and lawn. And that's how I got started. And that's what we did. And so now, Coalmarch, that was, probably about 7 years ago. And now that's, Coalmarch has, we literally have hundreds of clients all over the United States, all pest and lawn. This year we released this thing called the industry marketing report. And I'm super excited about it. It was a big project that it took months to create. Most of the time when you hear like stats and industry stats and numbers, they're all based on surveys. Well, the difference with our report is that it's based on actual numbers coming out of analytics. And so we've scaled large enough now that I can tell you things that have never been known in the industry before. And so anyway, we talked about that at CO2, but that's how we got started, and that's what we're doing. And kind of my vision for this is that we become, I think we're already the number one agency in our industry as far as digital is concerned, and I don't say that, please don't take that as my ego speaking. I mean that in the sense that, we have a very high quality product because that's all we do. It's not like, an agency, it's a challenge for an agency. If I've got a coffee shop and then I've got a maintenance guy, and then I've got, the donut shop, and then I've got this guy over here. I mean, it's just so much to learn.
There's expertise. Like the context is huge in our industries.
Yep.
I mean, the way a pest control company grows is a lot different than a bakery, right? Like,
get
traffic into your storefront versus actually generating the lead online.
Yep. Totally. Yep. And so it makes us very valuable to our customers, and it makes it so that we can go and take them to a level that no other agency can go or do. So
what's the vision on that? I mean, you mentioned 100 or so customers with Coalmarch or companies with Coalmarch. Is it to have 1,000 pest control companies all using it, or is it to go horizontal, kind of like you have been doing into lawn and some of these other home services?
I don't know. Right now, we have more than we can handle with pest and lawn. And right now, my focus is, perfecting the model. We have a really good model. Mm-hmm. And as long as we continue to grow, to me, I don't have this grand vision that I want to grow the business at 100% a year. I think that is a recipe for, sacrificing quality. We're doing well as a business. And I say that, it's all relative. And by the time someone listens to this, it could be a totally different story. But, we're doing well. We're growing really strong, and we're providing a lot of value. And so my vision for now is, continue to build out and be the top agency and really get better. And then once the company can't, like, we've got market saturation, which I think we have a long way to go. It's a big industry. The pest and lawn industry is huge. I think it will probably be after I'm long gone that there's a need to even go to a different industry because, while we do have hundreds of customers all over the United States, our industry, is a very big industry. And when I say pest and lawn, so there's there's definitely plenty of runway left for us to go down.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So what does a day in the life look like for you? I mean, I'm just super curious, like,
okay.
as your CEO of Triangle, right?
No, I'm not. So yeah. So I can talk through that. So my normal day, I get up at 4. And this past month, I'm not done. I had to have shoulder surgery, but normally get on the weights, stay there for about an hour, come out, I get a shower, and then once I do that, then I'll spend probably a couple of hours just kind of prepping for the day. I'll go through email, do whatever, get the kids up. We spend some time together. And then they're off to school. And, pre-COVID, it was, I would head to the office and I am actually CEO of Coalmarch. I have a CEO that runs Triangle. And so really it's working with the Coalmarch team. I have a leadership team there. I have a COO there, and I spend probably, I'd say 85 to 90% of my time at Coalmarch. Right now it's all at home, of course. And I meet with my COO, and I'm really focused I'm all about building people. And so, I meet with my CEO from Triangle, and I meet with my COO from Coalmarch, and we spend a lot of time together, and we meet together as well. I mean, they are, the services that we provide are very, very different, but we're still service businesses. And so we meet together, we brainstorm both businesses together, and we're learning together. And then of course, both of those, the COO and the CEO, they both have leadership teams, and we just kind of keep the model going from there. And so that's typically until about 3:00. I'm an early guy, which is kind of funny, but I'm home usually by like 4. Kids are home usually by then. We do dinner, and then, whatever we got going on at night, whether it be karate or, baseball, whatever, we go and do that. And by about 8:00, I'm getting pretty tired. And by 9, I'm in bed, or I shoot for 9. Usually it's 9:30 or 10. And that's the day in the life of Donnie Shelton. Right now, I mean, years ago, I wrote a couple of books. My schedule was very different when I did that. But other than that, it's pretty standard for now.
That's awesome. You mentioned COVID. How has it been adapting to the COVID that everybody's facing right now? I guess I would imagine your Coalmarch team probably went digital pretty quickly because I'm sure it was really easy for us too. You were all working over Slack anyway. So
yeah.
Are you guys still working remotely?
Yeah. So yeah, and you're absolutely correct. With Coalmarch, well, first of all, let me just talk about COVID in general. I freaking hate it. I hate it. I love getting together with my team. I think there's something to be said for culture and just being together and being around other people, even if you're not directly working with them. Just the ability to influence and to be influenced. It's very difficult to do that digitally. Not saying it can't be done. It's easier, right? It's a little bit more difficult when you're sitting behind a screen and you're at home. But you're right. Coalmarch, it was a switch and we were done, right? I mean, we already had a work from home policy anyway. And so it just went from, hey, you can work from home however many days you want to a week, to now we all have to work from home. On the Triangle side, it was a non-event. Luckily, we had already invested in technology. We were on, Coalmarch's call scripts platform, and it was the same thing. We flipped a switch and our call center moved directly to our people's homes, and we had them come into the office and pick up their computers if they didn't have it. We did an internet check, and if there are some folks that had too slow internet, we helped them upgrade it. And then our call center transitioned to our CSR or inside sales team's homes. And we managed it all remotely, right? I mean, luckily, we had already made the investment in technology that it literally was like the next day we were at home. And as far as technicians are concerned, I mean, we kind of followed a similar model of everyone else. Technicians start from home. We had our branch managers come in and prep, like if they do like a chemical order or whatever, they'd prep it, leave it outside, the technician can pick it up. And then, and we were already doing outside services. And so there's a few changes we made with communications with our customers, but for the most part, and I'm knocking on wood right now, it was fairly a non-event. I'm just ready to get out of the homes and back into the office.
Yeah,
so
here, right? There's something about coming in, especially as a startup. We were a 5-person startup at Lawnbot, like coming in teams in the room, like we're like conquering mountains together, new problem
Yeah.
comes up, or we want to build a new feature on a sprint, and we're like, oh, let's build this in. And we're back in the office now, but we're in a unique scenario because we're only 5 people. We're not 35 people in an office, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit of a unique scenario, but I just hate wearing a mask, right? Like,
Oh gosh.
I'm like,
Yes.
damn it, I forgot my mask. Right?
Yep. Yep.
Feel this thing.
Yep.
Well, Donnie, I know your time is very precious. We're getting up on time here, and one thing that I like to ask everybody that comes on Lawnbot Live, especially people that are doing as much as you're doing, is what would you say to that lawn care owner, that pest, that person that is considering opening a pest control company? What would you say to them starting out in their business? The best piece of advice, I guess, like the best, even if it's really philosophical, like the best piece of advice you'd have for somebody who's aspiring to reach the level of success that you have in pest control or lawn space.
This is aspiring or current or both?
Both.
Best piece of advice.
Like if there was one true thing you know to be true.
I know I'm processing. So here's what I would say. I can't get it to 1. I will get it to 2. Number one.
Bonus.
Number 1 is don't ever stop believing that you can. There are so many people who are a lot less talented than you are, and they've done it, right? So you know, belief is powerful, and when you are absolutely convinced, it's energizing, and it energizes other people. You know, I've had situations when the company was just in dire straits, and I never flinched. I never doubted. I'm like, we're going to make it. We will find a way. Like just that just rugged belief that nothing will stop me. You know, you got to kill me to stop me, right? So that's number 1 is just this really strong belief that you can do it, right? And then number 2 is seek out people who are killing it in the industry. You know, this is such, and I said this at the beginning of your show, this is such a great industry. People will help you. There are people out there doing it right now. If you reached out to them and said, look, I am trying to do this, and here's where I want to go. Can I take, an hour or 2 of your time? I can't tell you how many guys early on spent a day with me and was willing to share with me what they were doing, how they did it. And what you're going to find out is that it's not rocket science, right? It's all execution. And to me, you know, I look back at those mentors and I cannot put a number on it. And I try to do the same, right? I try to give back. I mean, we have folks that come in, and again, I don't want to give the impression that I'm some big success, because I'm not. But my point is that, you know, seek those people out and learn from them, right? Because if you have a strong belief that you can do it and that you will not stop until you get there, and you have folks along the way to help you, you absolutely will be unstoppable. You will.
Man, that is I'm jacked up. I'm ready. We're working the weekend, right? You got me all jacked up. That's awesome, Donnie. And I would have to agree with you on both of those. I remember when I was starting my business, there was never a lack of people. As long as you're willing to take the initiative and reach out, hey, can I come and fly and meet you? And one case, there was an owner of a lawn care company. He sold it for $8 million. He actually flew me out. He's like, just because you're showing ambition, I'm going to have my secretary like fly you out to meet me. And
wow.
I was like 23 at the time. And I was like, you know, I get out there and it's like the coolest thing ever. Right. Like, I plan on paying that forward one day too. In a big way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
100% right. This is a unique industry that people pay it forward. So don't ever stop believing you can. You got to kill me if you want to stop me, and seek out people that are killing it.
Yep.
And emulate, right? There's recreate the wheel. They're already having success, duplicate, and implement.
Well, and reason it took me a while to answer that question, because, you know, I could tell you, well, you could, I mean, all the stuff that you do, tactics change, but that mindset never changes, right? The mindset of like, no matter what happens, I'm never going to quit. And I know there's other folks out there I can learn from. That is what's going to carry you all the way. You know, it never changes. So
love that. Well, Don, thanks for coming on Lawnbot Live today. You've been a great guest. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hopefully, hopefully your listeners get something out of it. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and think you guys are doing some great things, and it's great to see what you guys are doing, and wish you all the best. So
thanks, I appreciate that. So we'll see you soon. Hopefully.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, buddy. Take care now.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yep. All right, folks. There it was. Donnie Shelton, Coalmarch, Triangle Pest Control. Jacks me up. I'm super fucking. And yeah, we're pumped. Next week we have on the show Lisa Fiore with Landscape Hub, a tech company in this space. She's innovating. She's connecting the nurseries and the grow houses side of the business with the people that buy it. Typically, it's a pretty manual process. You got to call a bunch of nurseries. Hey, do you have this plant? Do you have this in stock, right? They are changing that. They're digitizing it, making it so you can search their inventory real time. Super exciting stuff. So we got next week on the show, Lisa Fiore with Landscape Hub. Until then, I'm Kendall Hines, your host with Lawnbot, and we'll catch you later.